Hello, welcome to Exodus chapter 21. We are going to continue with verse 12, which is going to be about killing and bodily harm. Verse 12. Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. So if you hit someone, they died, you're going to die as well. But if you did not lie in wait for him, so it wasn't a premeditated murder, but God let him fall into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place to which he may flee. And these are going to be later the cities of refuge. It's interesting that it is understood that it was God who let him fall into his hand. So they were protecting those who accidentally killed. But if a man willfully attacks another to kill him by cunning, again premeditated murder, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. Then that person was supposed to be killed. Whoever strikes his father or his mother shall be put to death. So it was more about the Ten Commandments. You could trace it back to the Ten Commandments that you have to respect your father and mother, and you have to treat them in a certain manner. This one is interesting. Verse 16, whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him, shall be put to death. So, I've mentioned it before how slavery in the Bible was different than the North Atlantic slave trade. Because this is the verse. You weren't allowed to kidnap anyone, first of all, keep them as your slave, or sell the person as a slave. And you weren't even allowed to buy someone else's slave. So even if you weren't the one kidnapping the person, if you were found in possession of a person who was kidnapped, made a slave, you're going to be put to death as well. Whoever curses his father or his mother shall be put to death. Again, Ten Commandments. When men quarrel and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and the man does not die but takes to his bed, then the man rises again. That if the man rises again and walks outdoor with his staff, he who struck him shall be clear. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time, and he shall have him thoroughly healed. So, if you fought with someone, somebody got hit, didn't die, and I think there's a good way for it in Hungary anyway. It says that if you have an injury that heals within 8 days, then it's different. It's in a different category than if it's more than 8 days. Again, so if you can heal fast, then the person only has to pay for while you are recovering. But in any case, both parties were to be blamed in this instance. One had the injury, the other had to pay. When a man strikes his slave, male or female, sorry, I'm really thirsty. When a man strikes his slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. So if someone killed a slave, the person was supposed to be killed as well. But if the slave survives a day or two, he is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money. I don't understand this one. It seems strange that if the slave, so you don't hit someone, you don't beat someone to death, they survive for a couple of days, then you're not to be avenged. I think it's to do with, I read it once, that, so you have to, we're going to talk about this later as well, but you have to look at these laws not as a, more like a guidance, not to look at the specifics. So you weren't supposed to, I read, there was a film once and it was really good. There was a really good line in it. They said the first punch might be a reflex, but the second one is something else. So you could fight with someone, or somebody could anger you. If you did, first punch was reflex, but if you carried on beating the person, and especially if the person died, that showed your intent. And I think it had to do a lot with the intent. But we're going to talk about it. When men strive together and hit a pregnant woman, again, if the guys get together to fight and they hit a pregnant woman, so her children come out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him. So if the kid is born prematurely, but no other issue happens, then there's still a fine to pay. But if there is a harm, then you shall pay life for a life. Again, life for a life. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a tooth, burn for burn, wood for wood, strife for strife, stripe for stripe. Okay, we're gonna get back to this. So, when a man strikes the eye of his slave, male or female, and destroys it, he shall let the slave go free because of his eye. If he knocks out a tooth of his slave, male or female, he shall let the slave go free because of his tooth. This law was called the lex talionis. And what was interesting here is you had to pay a penalty even if your slave was the one that got injured because of you. But I read it in a book that they reckon that the lex talionis actually wasn't practiced at all. It was more like a guiding principle to understand how people should behave toward one another, toward each other, towards servants or slaves. So the punishment had to fit the crime. That was the whole idea behind it. And the other great thing about it was that the rich couldn't impose different penalty on the poor, because people are saying that, oh yeah, this is just a copying of the law of Hammurabi. But although it is similar, there were differences, because the penalty for stealing, for example, was different for a poor and for a rich person. So this is where the difference lies. Everything was equal in that sense. So before the law, the poor, the rich, they were the same. There were no difference. And like I said, there isn't really any evidence that this was actually practiced in this form. It was more like a guiding principle. Amen.